Hello, and welcome to a new edition of True Audio Files. Today, I am going to talk about our favorite imperfect medium, the record. Some of this was spawned by, this was spawned by a couple of different things this week. The first one that's piqued my interest was a return or exchange policy for a company that does some remasterings, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more in detail in a minute or two. But the other one was the basically announcement and release of a couple of albums this week that were put out on Echo vinyl, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. But we'll talk about that in a second. I'll first start off with talking about what initiated this response, and that was a return policy for a manufacturer, a company that does remasters. And I'm not too familiar with them. I think I have a couple of albums of theirs, but I have to put my glasses on because I'm getting old and I can't read anything that's that's tiny and less than a couple feet away from my face. But it's and I might be mispronouncing the name of this company, but it's Rebellin Remasters. And it really struck me because it's something that I've been saying for years, because I see on social media all the time people talking about, there's a couple of scuffs on this, or there's a slight warp, or there's something that doesn't affect the actual play of the record. And people return and exchange these things because they want a perfect record. And my argument is there's just no such thing. There's just not a perfect record out there. Or let me rephrase that. It's very, very hard to get one. I think I have probably close to 6,000 records. I'm not sure I've got one that's perfect. I've got several that are very, very good and that are very, very close. But I can't honestly say any of them are perfect. But let me read you their exchange/return or refund policy, and then I'll talk about it in detail and what my thoughts are on that. So, it says, vinyl is an imperfect medium, and there's been far too many forum postings and reviews of people returning copy after copy of a vinyl release because of surface noise or other quibbles. While the remastering for vinyl produced for Rebellin Remasters goes through the same intense scrutiny as our CDs and test pressings are carefully reviewed, it's understood that surface noise is inherent in the medium, and to expect something spotless is unrealistic, especially since modern-day vinyl pressing is not near as reliable as it was decades ago. We take the step to convert original inner sleeves to inserts so the LP itself is enclosed in a protective polylined inner sleeve to help reduce static and debris. We also avoid 180 gram vinyl because the thicker the vinyl, there's more chance of warping, dishing, and being off-center. That said, we offer no guarantees each copy is perfectly flat or perfectly centered. We offer these fun-colored vinyl limited editions for those who enjoy the format but understand it's not perfect. We are in no way advertising these as the ultimate audiophile vinyl product, but do expect that they will generally sound very good. Each LP is factory sealed in shrink wrap or resealable plastic sleeve, but if you would prefer to have your copy opened and the inner sleeve with the vinyl placed outside of the jacket to prevent possible seam splits during transit, please email with your order number promptly after your order is placed, and this service will be provided. By offering this service, if your LP arrives with seam splits, it's not covered. If an item is grossly damaged in transit or other for unforeseen circumstances, we will work with the customer to resolve the situation, but those will be the only exceptions. Domestic buyers will be responsible for returning the damaged or defective item. Media mail is fine for replacement, if any are available, or refund. Again, if you don't feel you can agree to the vinyl policy, please do not purchase the format. And I think that holds true across the board, especially those people who primarily buy and get records shipped to them. Split seams seem to be a pretty big factor for a lot of people, and I understand it. If you're buying something brand new, you don't want seam splits, and I don't necessarily have anything against you wanting to get something that is defect free, for lack of a better term, or not damaged. Completely understand and get that. But there are a lot of people out there that really take it to the nth degree and blame the manufacturer for the fact that they need to make better quality jackets or things like that. When the reality is on those, it's usually because the shippers are just abusing the packaging. Because I find that I do get the occasional seam splits, especially on the ones that get complained about most, which I've noticed has been MoFi, especially the one steps. The at least on the older packaging, I think it happens a little bit less on the newer packaging. But the big complaint has been that there's seam splits. I think because it gets bumped around in transit and breaks the seams a little bit. So I get that, and I certainly don't have any problems with people wanting to get those jackets replaced, and I found that MoFi is usually pretty good about doing that if you want that done. So, but the whole wanting a perfect record, especially when it plays and sounds fine, it just doesn't visually look good. People should not be buying records if that is the goal, because you're just not going to get a perfect record. So, to those of you that are out there that buy records and return a lot of them because they're not perfect, even though they may play well, please stop. Because part of the reason that I'm asking you that is it actually makes the records cost more, because the more you return, the more overhead the company has, so the more they have to charge for the records, so there are so they can actually continue to make money. So if you want perfection, do not buy records. If you want to enjoy the way it sounds and are less concerned about the visual aspect of it, you're with me. Because yes, I would love a perfect looking record, but I understand that the sound comes first. If it is visually not as good, but it sounds fine, by all means, please, keep it. If there's an issue, I have no problems with, in terms of audibly an issue, then by all means, I don't have a problem with that. And most of the manufacturers don't either. So that's my take on that part of it. Now, getting into the Echo vinyl. Mike from the In-Groove had posted a review of the new Billie Eilish, and part of his review was talking about the fact that they used Echo vinyl to press all of these. One of the other complaints, and I agreed with him on this one entirely, was she had went on a rant, and I know I mentioned this in one of my other videos, but she went on a rant about the fact that Echo vinyl, people have way too many variations, and she's not going to do that, and that, having all these different variations is just crazy, and it's bad for the environment, and blah, 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 blah. Then she goes and makes, I think there's at least 7 variants, if not 8 variants of her album. I have the Amazon exclusive, but there's also an independent store exclusive. I think she may have had her site exclusive, and then there's a black vinyl, and I know there's at least 7, maybe 8 versions of it available out there. So here is my ask, and also I should say, I should probably go a little further in that. Now, parts of the complaints that he had on this record I felt were legitimate. I actually did listen to at least the first side of this so far, and then quickly compared it to the digital version, the lossless streaming version of it. And yeah, the lossless streaming version was a little bit better sounding, but I wouldn't say it was over the top better sounding. And that was one of his big complaints, because he thought the record sounded really, really bad. And I mean, I know he's got a lot better stereo system, so maybe the imperfections show up a lot better on his system than mine, but I definitely didn't think it sounded great, but I didn't feel that it sounded quite as bad as he made it out to be. But that being said, again, that could be my system and my ears. But I will say that, yes, it is a little bit noisy, but I wouldn't say it's any more noisy than a bad pressing with even virgin vinyl, let's say. And it was definitely cut at a lower volume, as he had talked about, which is a bad combo if you have loud surface noise and you cut the record low. But I think a lot of the reason why it was cut low is I know at least the first side is like 24 minutes long, and an ideal side for a record is about 17 minutes long. So you start getting into that 24, 25 minute issue, and you're going to have lesser quality sound because you're going to have to get rid of something. One of the big things that they did in this one especially is they lowered the volume, and I think that they also probably cut down on the bass and a little bit of the treble as well, and to help maximize and get that whole album on one record. I definitely think this would have benefited from 2 LPs instead of 1, but I'm guessing that probably went back to more of the better for the environment thing and not producing 2 records, things like that. So I also have Shellac, their new album that came out this week, and I had my video last week about Steve Albini, who is basically the front man for Shellac, wrote and recorded and sang on this. And this one, actually, in my opinion, I've only listened to a couple of songs off of this so far, the record version, and this one is on Echo Vinyl as well, and they even went to the lengths of printing the titles onto the vinyl itself, and I'll try to see if I can show you, and instead of having labels. So, Billie Eilish has labels on hers, which, are paper, and, maybe that's less good for the environment, if you will, than this alternative. But so I thought this was a really cool idea. But and let me see here. Yeah, so the record is basically the titles are printed on the vinyl itself. They're not on. They don't have labels. So I thought that was a cool idea. But I will actually say that, and this is Echo Vinyl as well, I felt, at least the couple of songs I heard, the vinyl was actually pretty noisy. Actually more noisy than the Billie Eilish, and I think this was cut louder too. So anyway, so that's that. And my suggestion for Echo Vinyl is I have zero problems with having an Echo Vinyl option. If you're wanting to talk about, something better for the environment and, not having so many variants, okay, maybe have less variants, but one variant I do want is I want one that's pressed well and pressed on good quality vinyl that's not recycled. My experience in general with recycled vinyl is it's almost always noisier. This certainly is the case on the Shellac. Not quite as much as, in my estimation, as on the Billie Eilish one, but it still is noisier than your typical vinyl. Hard to say for certain whether that's because it's the Echo Vinyl in this case, or if it's just pressed at a bad facility or whatever. But I feel, in general, my experience has been, and maybe it's just a perception thing, that the recycled vinyl definitely just doesn't have the sound quality. The surface noise is just a step louder, and really need to not have that. So, but anyway, that's my take both on, the imperfections of vinyl, and then you add to the imperfections of vinyl with the fact that if you use Echo Vinyl, that just adds to the imperfections, and I think that takes it a little bit too far, in my opinion. But would love to hear your take. What's your opinion about ensuring that you have a perfect piece of vinyl for your record that you just purchased, and whether or not you need to have that visually perfect, or if it's just audibly it sounds fine. A part of this is also kind of going back to just collectors in general, because I've seen this also in like the comic book world and the trading card, like baseball, basketball, football, whatever, name your card, trading cards, Pokemon, whatever. All of them seem to have a kind of a similar theme running through them, that they expect a perfect product coming out of the manufacturer. And it's just impossible unless you want to raise the price tremendously, given the amount of product they need to produce. The quality control would just have to be insane and just ultra expensive, and make the product that much more expensive. So anyway, I want to hear your take on that and see what you think. Do you have a problem with people constantly returning vinyl just because it visually doesn't look good, but even though it may play fine. I know I brought this up in the past, but it just kind of resurfaced again. But I'd love to hear your take. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit that like button. I want to thank my subscribers for subscribing to my channel. If you don't subscribe, please do so. I'd love to see some more subscribers out there. If you want to know when my new videos come out, hit that alert bell. That's everything for this episode. I want to thank you very much. And I want to say thank you, and you have yourself a good rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Thank you.